I'm deeply touched by Haven's presentation here, speaking about what communication can empower us to do. It is amazing to work with technology, and I think it's amazing to work across borders. We're here in a pavilion, a Swedish pavilion, amongst a world of other countries, and we're coming here to bridge. We're coming here to talk to other people because we think that innovation will happen and be at its best when we do it together with other people, when we co-create, when we find new solutions so that we can also include people such as Haben into our societies. So I'm so honored to be here today. I have a wonderful panel to present to you. They are magnificent experts from leading companies across the world, but they're also Swedish. And they are here today, and they're going to share the stories together with us here in a panel, and we're going to speak about co-creation and innovation on the basis of technology, of course. But technology itself will not solve it all. We need to elaborate, we need to look beyond what technology can do and focus on the enterprises and the vision for people. So with Industry 4.0, we will be enabled by technology advancements, but will also require collaboration, innovation, and co-creation across industry borders. And with that, I would like to introduce the panelists, and it's my honor to introduce Mr. Salim Al-Baluchi, the Chief Technical Officer of DO. Please join me here on the stage. Thank you very much. And Mr. Fadi Faroun, our own President of the Middle East and Africa. Please join us here. Please take a seat. And we also have three fantastic panel members joining us online. So I'm starting by introducing Peter Vincent, who is the Head of Connected Systems from Scania. You are joining us virtually, so very, very welcome. Shiraz Mishra. Oh, you're with us? Thank you very much. So Shiraz Mishra, we have you here. We are Head of Partnerships and Ecosystems from ABB Robotics. Very, very welcome.
Thank you.
And we have Anand Natarajan, who's the Regional Manager, also from ABB. You are representing Southeast Asia, Oceania, and the Middle East and Africa region, again from ABB. Very, very welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
So, one of the key enabling factors, and we've been speaking about technology and empowerment here, is 5G. It's an innovation platform, and we've been speaking about that. And I'm really, really curious, what are the main areas where you are exploring 5G today? And I wanted to start with you, Mr. Salim.
Thank you. Thank you, actually, to Ericsson for having me here. I'd like to thank the Commissioner for his excellency, actually, for the inspiring speech. And of course, Haben for the excellent presentation and the possibilities that we can enable by technology. And we are here about action. I like the last statement, last message she communicated. It is all about action. So in the UAE today, we have 5G is reality. So the technology is here, enabled. Actually, it is not only 5G as a technology, of course, to enable and foster innovation from end-to-end perspective. There are multiple elements which are reality and are here available in the industry at large. We have the IoT capabilities, sensors from end-to-end perspective, whatever kind of sensors, from small sensor that can capture the weather and the temperature capabilities, up to the live streaming capabilities, up to the whatever, again, the use cases requires from IoT perspective. Network being 5G capabilities, or beyond 5G as well, the fiber and other technologies that connect things with all the characteristics the use cases requires, and the computing power today available, the cloud capabilities and the computing capabilities, along with the infrastructure associated with the computing capabilities. Of course, fiber is the important part of that ecosystem, the supercomputing capabilities. That is a reality as well. all these three aspects enabled by AI capability, which is the algorithm and the algorithm that add value to the end-to-end ecosystem, supported with security. So all these four pillars with the security capabilities these are the enablers for technology to drive innovation, to move forward with no limit. The biggest challenge, I like the commissioner metaphor of the brain. At a stage, we as technologists, as in the telecom industry, trying to innovate and think in behalf of other sectors. How healthcare will do, they need to do their business and innovate in their behalf, or road and transport, or utility companies. And that challenge, actually, we were not able to move. And I like what Heben highlighted, that, okay, if one thing does not work, we need to try other possibilities. So we tried. I was entering my lab, actually, within do the innovation lab, and I'm seeing my team that are doing things in healthcare. But we have no clue whether this is a real need for them or no. So we need to bring all the brains together in order to be able to maximize value. We know technology, but we don't know healthcare. We don't know what are the needs of different segments of the society. So I think things need to come together. We need to collaborate, bring the brains together in order to foster technology. So we are technology available. Action is actionable, actually. All the things are available today. It is a matter of bringing the brain, collaborating, and driving value. In the UAE, we have significant investment in 5G. We are covering the country, almost 90% of the country population is covered by 5G. We have fiber footprint, one of the highest fiber footprint country in the world. Data centers and the capabilities of data center. The country itself is very well connected with fiber to the world. We have multiple exit points from the country, being terrestrial, being through the Arabian Sea to different parts, to the east and west. So excellent infrastructure. It is about now bringing brains together and how we can foster and harvest from the capabilities that have been built.
Wonderful. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to turn to Peter. Peter, are you with us? From Scania's point of view, can we have some comments from you? How do you work with 5G today, and what are you envisioning?
So my area is around the sustainable transport solutions based on commercial vehicles. And it's interesting to listen to the capabilities rolling out, as you spoke about the coverage. And from our perspective, we are looking at 5G mainly from the autonomous vehicles. And in the autonomous vehicles, it's about mobile devices. It's what we call data centers on wheels. It also adds both the need to get discrete data to the vehicle in order to be able to take better decisions, to expand the vision of the vehicle, and not only to rely on the sensors on the truck. But it's also to, when there is a problem, to go into kind of resolve mode, to do remote assessment, to do maybe not the remote driving. We want the vehicles to drive them themselves, but help the vehicles to decide when the autonomous vehicle cannot decide by themselves. So from our perspective, we are launching 5G into the autonomous trucks. We have done test runs on our test track since 5 years back with 5G. And we'll continue that. And for us, it's mainly about coverage, mainly about ensuring the quality of service, and to include that into the total offering and ensuring that the sustainable transport system always works.
Fantastic. Great aspects there. Thank you, Peter. Shiraz, can you take us through from ABB's point of view? We're hearing about coverage. We're talking about 5G here. What does that mean for you in ABB and ABB Robotics? How are you envisioning 5G and exploring that for the enterprises today?
Certainly, Charlotte. So ABB is accelerating the digital transformation of our customers in multiple industries. We're doing this through our businesses in electrification, motion, process automation, and robotics. And focusing on robotics where we belong, one of the biggest trends that we are seeing is the individualized consumer. So everybody talks about the Industry 4.0 society, but this implies that everything is going to be customized. That means our customers who we service require flexibility and simplicity in their manufacturing processes. And that translates us to providing flexible manufacturing solutions for them and flexible robot systems that deliver this value. We consider 5G to be one of the drivers of this flexibility, if not one of the most important ones. And in a very basic way, at the very basic level, 5G enables mobility of robots. So related to this, there are two areas which we are exploring, and I categorize our solutions into these two areas. One is obviously control, and the second is data processing. With control, I mean, in a very simple language, cutting cables to stationary robots and offloading the control logic to an edge platform. That means the softwares which control the robots can be moved from the robots themselves to a cloud platform. But this obviously requires real-time capabilities, reliable connectivity, and we think that 5G will provide this. Similarly, AGVs and autonomous mobile robots and autonomous light vehicles, these fleets can be managed remotely, where we are even enabling services like navigation. So that's the control part of it. And with real-time data processing, we can enable mapping solutions of the robots based on the sensor data that we are receiving, or even robot localization, which basically tells us where exactly is the robot, where exactly is the arm, where is the end effector. And we get this based on the motion information from the mobile robot. So we have these use cases. We are also looking at, exploring augmented reality assisted robot operations, which obviously requires the capabilities of 5G. Multiple other examples like collision-free path planning, orchestration of heterogeneous fleets. So basically, all of these use cases, they're helping us optimize our fleets and helping us deliver the flexibility to our customers, which at the end helps accelerate the adoption of anything, of digital transformation and Industry 4.0.
Thank you, Shiraz. Fadi, we have had some really great examples here from the CSP, but also from the industries in terms of how 5G is going to be utilized across UAE and the world. From Ericsson's point of view, where are we? How are we thinking now going forward with 5G, and especially when it comes to the enterprise segments?
I mean, as a global ICT provider, I think we've been really fortunate to be able to work here in the UAE with DU and other players, because actually the UAE has been one of the first globally to launch 5G and commit for wide coverage across the country. And that has enabled players like us and others to have access to a wide 5G coverage, which is really the basics that will propel this innovation that we all are pushing for. We are engaging, and we have been engaging for many years now with different academia and industries, partners like Scania, ABB, and others in the different fields to learn more about what is it that the industries really require, and what kind of skills and knowledge do we need to bring to the table in order for these industries to say, wow, in parallel with my own ongoing digitization, if I add this, relatively, you can say, a small but critical part of 5G connection, how can I really transform my business now? And I think we should not underestimate the work that this takes. Every industry has different characteristics, and this is where we spend a lot of the time currently with our partners, industrial or operators, to really see how can we put this in a practical manner, how can we launch this, and more importantly, how we can find a horizontal way to duplicate and scale that across UAE and other parts of the world. So this is really where we are.
This is wonderful, and I think we have been talking for quite some time about Industry 4.0, 5G as an innovative platform, but we're still struggling a little bit, I think, to reach through, especially, around about in the region here. And based on those perspectives, I wanted to invite you again, Peter. From Scania's point of view, where do you see the key hurdles or the blockers are today? And what is Scania working on practically to try and resolve those? Can you give us some insights from your side, please?
Absolutely. So I would say one of the hurdles is for mass rollout is the cost for rugged devices, the cost of the 5G modems and the availability of it on the price point that's relevant for mass coverage. And Scania is today producing about 100,000 volume per year. We are a small provider when it comes to fighting with Apple. Where you can't compare the prices. So the price premium we have to pay in order to put 5G into every vehicle is significant for us. So I think we're struggling with that, and that's why we are first launching with autonomous vehicles, and we're not going directly for the full volume. So that is one of the things. But on the other hand, we have now a 5G in the next version. I'm getting a sample actually sent to me today of a new next generation new device. We're starting testing and we are exploring the technology, but we're not launching full scale. And the other part is the coverage and what the actual benefits you can use, not just in a test setup, but actually in actual use on, for example, we are testing now with two simple autonomous vehicle going from Stockholm down to Jönköping. And the actual coverage on that route will determine what technology we can use. And if we don't have a good enough coverage on the technology where we're using it, then it's hard for us to roll out. And then we always have to have the backup alternatives. So for us, it's about the private networks is one capability for us to ensure the quality of service. And I think what we want to explore here is to how can we combine this into an added value of adding 5G and the configuration in the networks, the quality of service, and the way to get it on the hands where it's cost efficient and it's giving added value. To finding that balance, it's like a hen and the egg. We have to go forward with the technology exploration, with our test sites and all of that. And then when we see that it's mature enough, then there will be a global rollout. And then we need to do that quickly and to bring home the value that we have been creating. So we are not hesitant on the technology. We see great benefits. I think it's the price and the premium and finding that balance between these two. And working with the MNOs and finding their value in the value chain is also, well, I would say a bit of a challenge here. For us, we are a global operator. When it comes to telecom, we have 100 countries where we have connected vehicles. And to find that balance between the big giants like Ericsson and the deviating countries and all of that, and finding the way to get the technology in the hands of the actual users, I think that's where we're struggling a little bit.
Peter, these are great insights, and I'm going to pass some of them over to you, Salim, because we're talking here about connectivity, the cost of connectivity. The cost is also different depending on which country companies such as Scania is rolling out their vehicles. He's talking about network coverage as key for them. So if we just stop on those two parameters, you're a leading CSP here in the UAE. How do you discuss these topics, and how would you like to comment to Peter here and help us understand your side of the story?
Actually, as I explained earlier, we used to think as operators that we innovate in behalf of others. We are trying to do things in behalf of others. Now the way market is evolving, for CSPs specifically, we are evolving toward API economy, providing APIs, exposing APIs to different sectors, and based on the needs, from connectivity, from latency, from IoT, from number of, again, connected devices, and based on specific SLAs. So we believe, again, shifting from traditional way, as a CSP, our core competency and the best we know how to sell bits, bytes, and minutes. And this is our core, and we are not able to get out of this, these offerings sort of capabilities. But with the API economy, as operators, bits, bytes, minutes, there will be an entity selling that, but we are opening APIs to different sectors, like, again, from autonomous driving or from robotic management. For all those, again, verticals, opening the capabilities for them to monetize and use the infrastructure that is being built. So this will ease the integration with telecom operators, exposing the APIs, standard APIs, so the integration will be much easier. and faster time to market. From cost perspective, actually, all this depends on the economic of whole capabilities. There are CSPs, there are the beneficiaries, there are the end user, and yet we are not able to figure out the whole ecosystem. If we collaborate, what is the business case and what is the framework of engagement? This is yet not clear. There are entities, because of uncertainties, they are trying to develop their own network, their own private networks, which is, again, we have seen it historically, it is not scalable. There will be definitely issues in building private networks. The CSPs are positioned to build infrastructure in the most cost-effective way, in the most scalable and sustainable way, even from security perspective. But it requires engagement and discussions. Again, again the commissioner example, the brains, putting the two parts of the brains together in order to be able to understand the challenges and overcome the challenges. I agree at this stage, at early stage of rollout of 5G, we all are suffering from the availability of devices. And it is a scarce resources at this stage. Demand is high, supply is limited, especially after the pandemic, limitation of chipset. But this will not last for long. Definitely this will be solved with the increase of demand, increase of supply. But again, it requires sitting together and understand how we can create value. We create value to our industry, each players create value to their industry, and how we can create value to our partners, to the society at large, and to different sectors and economy in our industry at large again.
Fadi, we are a global company. We're present in many, many parts of the world. When you hear this conversation and when you speak with the global leaders in the company, can you recognize this conversation? You know, the challenges and some of the hurdles that we're hearing about, enterprises, companies such as Scania struggling with understanding their business case, what's the cost of connectivity here versus somewhere else, how can they incorporate that, various network abilities across the world as well. What are they designing their products for, so to speak? On a global basis, what do you see here? What are the key blockers? Are these significant on a global basis? Do you see the same, or do we see any further?
No, it's very, very similar, I would say. Sorry. Number one, I agree very much with what Peter discussed here in terms of the coverage. I mean, this is absolutely the necessity. We've seen in certain countries, you might have a good coverage for 5G, in a certain spot, maybe a campus around some of your manufacturing plants, but then you go up to the other part of campus and you drop back to 4G. I mean, those are the basics that need to be resolved to ensure you have ubiquitous and reliable 5G coverage. Without it, you can't even discuss step 2, right? Another dialogue that comes up quite often is you know, there are new requirements when it comes to deployment some of these solutions. In the past, all of the cellular technologies we have seen have been mostly directed towards, you know, communication over voice, entertainment for myself on the smartphone, video. Now, when we come into an industrial commercial world, there are new types of SLAs that are required. You know, in a certain reliability, it has to be guaranteed. We're talking sometimes of critical communication. Could be hospitals, for instance, where you need an absolute highest, almost near 100%, you know, reliability. This puts requirements that are quite different from the past on the networks. This, of course, engages the operators from a commercial perspective on how to collaborate these things. And this is what we're going through. And this is frankly normal, because whenever you have this kind of transitions, you have this type of change, we need to collaborate and see how we do it. It's not the first time. You know, some of us have been in this industry for very long. We remember machine to machine 20 years ago. We discussed the same elements, right? And then we resolved that. When 3G was introduced, was also a lot of discussion. How will video play a role here? So every technology carries with it a new set of business and technical imperatives. And I think this is why we are all here today, to continue that dialogue and every day come up with better answers.
Wonderful, yes. And Anand, you're joining us here as well from, I believe, Southeast Asia. And I'm keen to hear your view as well on that particular topic. You know, what you're going through now and what you're seeing in Southeast Asia and that part of the world. Do you see that those that market is applicable also here in the UAE, or do you see any significant differences in the UAE or in the Middle East and Africa region as a whole?
Sure. Thank you very much, Charlotte, and thanks again for accommodating us to join remotely. I'm based in Singapore, and travel isn't still all that easy to be able to be there physically, but appreciate the chance to share our inputs here. I think the way I see it, there are both external factors in the market and internal priorities for companies operating in those countries that have an influence on the speed of 5G solutions taking off in a country or even in a region. The existing infrastructure of communications networks, the government roadmap in every country, of course, has an influence on the adoption speed, on barriers or lack of them, of course. But at the same time, we also see a lot of times there's a big role of the technology roadmap, specifically around the digitalization strategy, the need for manufacturing processes to be made flexible and future ready. And that plays into the readiness of the industrial companies themselves to invest in a 5G ecosystem in their plants and factories. If I look across our region, which is of course geographically quite diverse, but also in terms of manufacturing footprint, I see that we have already made big strides in terms of being able to have some intelligent conversations around what the benefits are of using 5G technology for several applications and solutions related to what we offer as ABB. We are in discussions with several customers. We're always in collaboration with the local Ericsson team and the operator in that country, for example, in Australia, in Thailand, in Singapore, etc. But it hasn't been smooth sailing. It hasn't been a simple and a natural way of being able to communicate that right away. And we can probably talk about that also in terms of what some of the challenges are. But if I look at the Middle East and African countries, I do realize there could be some specific challenges that we might encounter in terms of the 5G readiness, both in terms of the infrastructure itself externally and among the customer base as well. But I actually see great potential in that part of the world for it to take off in the near future. And why I say that is because if I do a comparison between Southeast Asia, for example, and the Middle East and Africa, ABB is a company with very wide local presence in that part of the world as well. But still, we see a huge demand among our customers for remote connectivity and support without necessarily having our engineering and service teams at their site every single time. That element, combined with the drive for big improvements in terms of productivity, in terms of reliability, to enhance competitiveness both in local and export markets across a variety of industrial segments in that part of the world, I believe represents a key opportunity for 5G solutions. For us, what we are working on to try and address that, in addition to, of course, driving R&D to make more of our products and solutions 5G ready, the other key area that we are focusing on is actually using the Ericsson Global Partnership to leverage on building industrial networks in each region or country to get the message out there to our customers and to work together to identify specific use cases, which can really help demonstrate the value of 5G to the customers in real time. We've taken this approach together with Ericsson in Singapore with the recently announced 5G enterprise ecosystem with 8 other global industry partners plus Ericsson and Singtel here. But we strongly believe this is the right approach to take as 5G starts making its presence felt in more countries and regions, rather than simply focusing on one's own products or technologies in isolation, which I believe makes it a bit limited in terms of being able to articulate that to the customers in terms of values and benefits.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much for giving these perspectives. And I wanted to go back to you, Peter, again and tie back into the autonomous vehicle conversation. Scania is obviously working massively on electrified autonomous vehicles with a sustainable mindset. But I wanted to bring it back because here in the UAE, there's a very strong objective and strategic agenda to introduce autonomous vehicles in the UAE. So I wanted to hear, because we hear a lot that it increases efficiency with autonomous driving, it reduces the risk of accidents, and all these things is coming with autonomous driving. There's a clear objective with it. But I wanted to hear from you a little bit more, because I think many of us might actually wonder, why do we need autonomous and self-driving vehicles? What's the key drive here? What is the purpose? Can you explain a bit more from a practical viewpoint, how this reduces cost and what we're bringing to the market, and what are the efficiency and benefits that you see?
Well, that's a broad question, but I think looking at it from an operational excellence, I think that is the perspective that we want to take. Looking at today's transport systems, they are to some degree starting to get electrified. We are on the journey on the electrification, so that is going to happen with the help of, for example, ABB on how to make megawatt charging systems. And that perspective. So the electrification is happening. The other part is to utilize the transport system in an as efficient as possible way as is possible. And one of the key elements here is to take away the driver. And that is because where it is possible to take away the driver, we can create a more smooth flow, and we can also create a good working environment for people. And it's a driver's shortage, at least in many parts of the world, where the drivers is one of the limiting factors, and it's also part of the cost. And to have an autonomous transport system that does not need a driver will create the possibility to reduce the cost, and also to have another type of system, and that is to utilize the way the roads need the transport system, not just when the driver can drive it, but when there is a low utilization on the roads, for example. But looking at it, what we are testing now is a hub-to-hub system where the driving between the different warehouses is automated. And that reduces the cost and reduces also the time it takes for a transport end-to-end. So our partner to Simple, they have tested to drive end-to-end coast in US, and they can reduce the drive time significantly because we are taking away the drivers and we can automate the flow, and we can make sure that we are utilizing the assets as much as possible. So looking at it from a society perspective, the autonomous vehicle will help to ensure that we have efficient transport system, and that will help the society in big. And of course, I think that the drivers will not be afraid of not getting jobs. There will be a number of jobs that are highly qualified and also reduces risk. So we can put people where they are not in risk. And I think that is also a perspective we have to take.
It's a very, very good point. And I wanted to turn to you here, Fadi, because we've heard Peter now speaking about autonomous vehicles. But Ericsson is not only working with companies such as Scania, we're working with many, many different industries and enterprises around the world. So I wanted to hear more from you, from perhaps a manufacturing perspective, to see how is 5G for these kind of manufacturing companies happening today? Do you have any good example you can share, please?
I think, let me take an example of what we are doing in Ericsson ourselves. We opened a factory in Texas to actually manufacture 5G equipment for the American market, and we decided at the beginning to make this a pure 4.0 5G enabled, power independent factory. And the results have been really amazing. This factory was actually, set up and produced during the pandemic itself, and we could discover already there, with the help of technology, we could reduce the amount of people who typically would have been needed underground to help us set it up by a huge number. Now that we have started the factory, we have used, autonomously guided vehicles that are picking up goods from one part of the plant to the other one. That has reduced the manual handling of material by 65%. And as was indicated, it not only increases productivity, but also reduces any risks of, issues that could come onto the workers. We have seen the actual productivity of the entire plant being above 100%, I mean 2 times higher than any other comparative plant that we have around the world. We have self-sufficient power with solar, and we've seen the power consumption going down was 25%. Any type of water that's been used indoors went down by 75%. So really incredible numbers that demonstrate that we can now, we have increased the yield of our own plant, we have reduced, the costs, and very importantly, we have increased a lot of sustainability targets, which we are aiming to achieve. And I think this is a great example where we ourselves are learning from our own, kind of manufacturing industry on what are the requirements, and we build upon that further with our partners.
It's fantastic. Yeah, thank you, Fadi. And I wanted to invite you, Anand, here into this conversation because we're talking now about the value of 5G and about the value of connectivity from autonomous vehicles, manufacturing, and so forth. When I spoke to you previously, you were sharing with me that when you go and sell your products out to the enterprise market, you do get quite a few questions from your customers, and you have to go out and explain the value of 5G and connectivity to those. So I just wanted you to perhaps help us understand how do you explain that value, and also what are the typical questions that you get from these enterprises?
Thanks, Ishal. That's a good question here, and I think maybe the first thing that I would highlight here is, and this is from our perspective when we're approaching our customers, it's very important to understand that not everything that we supply to our customer or what they use our solutions for, not even every customer or a business industry segment will necessarily need to switch to 5G from tomorrow. I think that's important to keep in mind when we have the conversation. We have to look at what the product is, or the solution is, where is it used, and what are the challenges that our customer is facing today in terms of speed, reliability, connectivity, etc., with the existing network and connection that they would be having at their facility. Because we want to make sure that we are recommending and explaining the value of 5G to the customers who definitely need it now, and will get value from implementing it, or else we risk losing our credibility and relationship, as you can imagine. But one of the key questions, the first questions we get asked, and we prepare for it rigorously from the customers that we go and talk to, therefore, is whether we believe that the ABB solution they are using at their factory will benefit incrementally and immediately from switching to 5G connectivity, and why. And I think if we look at our broad portfolio as ABB across the different businesses we have, maybe I'll start first with robotics and discrete automation, which is where Shiraz and I are working in. We focus on solutions such as the autonomous mobile robots, the AMRs, AGVs that Shiraz spoke about, automation solutions in facilities like warehousing and logistics sites, healthcare facilities, but even in industrial segments like automotive, where the need for mobility of the robots is key, and wires and cables are either too expensive or in some cases simply not practical to be used, for example, with the AGVs and AMRs. If I look at other businesses across ABB, this will equally apply to our EV chargers, our solutions for marine and ports applications, remote sensors on electric motors, for example, drone-based gas leak detection systems. There's a few different parts of the ABB business where we can clearly articulate this to the customers. And I think it has to really start with the benefits of high speed with low latency, enhanced reliability and predictability. It's much easier to position these in terms of value to the customer when you choose the right solution to the right customer and the right use case. And this we've also learned with experience, as I've said, in some of the countries where we're having these conversations right now. The second common question that we get a lot, I think it was referred to by Peter, Mr. Al-Budushi as well, is really about cost, the required investment and the cost benefit analysis for the customer. And I think here it's critical to highlight that it's very difficult for any one company, whether it's ABB or any other company, to articulate just based on what we are supplying as a part of the 5G platform. I think this can only be explained credibly to a customer when you're working in partnership with companies like Ericsson and the local operators, because they bring together the technology and the infrastructure, which is the backbone to the platform itself. And it's not just about the solutions or the products that a company like ABB sells. So yes, that kind of takes us back to the value of a partnership and an ecosystem. So based on our experience in the countries where we're having these conversations, I think these are the key questions, and these are where the answers in terms of the value and the benefits really kick in. And I would definitely think being a part of a partnership where we are able to address the bigger picture would help us answer these questions more comprehensively.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So being a part of a partnership and an ecosystem is supporting and helping you to also educate the B2B2B market, so to speak. And I think that brings us into the next question. And I wanted to invite you again, Mr. Salim, to hear your thoughts on the ecosystem and really maybe perhaps hear even an example where you have had a fruitful, perhaps collaboration outside of your usual CSP sphere, so to speak, and where you have managed to have a successful outcome. What were the key for success in that particular example?
Actually, it is primarily about the partnership and the engagement of the end user, of the client, because again, he understands his challenges. And we have an example, Hassantuk project. Hassantuk is having sensors in our part of the engagement in high-rise buildings for firefighting system for the civil defense to trigger and meet the KPI that has been set by the president to respond to a fire within 3 minutes as a response time. So for that, there was a need. So the KPI was set, and there was a need from civil defense for a solution that they can detect the fire in a faster pace and then act. Earlier, there are fire sensors, but it is isolated, so you will know about it if someone reports the fire. But usually fire happens in the early morning when people are asleep. So then you can know about it after the damage happens. So with the capabilities that have been built, that these sensors are connected through our infrastructure, and the alarm is extended to the civil defense. And we have real cases actually. It has been implemented now for the last 3 years. And we have cases where the system, the infrastructure has saved people's life. Which is again, the value is priceless, of course. And that is so such cases came from as a demand from the customers. We engaged with the customer and managed to drive value. Same applies. Again, I agree. It is about framework. It is about collaboration actually and partnership. So the technologists are there. We know how to drive technology. Again, I said it is about we know technology is there today. It is a reality. It is now a matter of understanding the value, or the challenges, the problem statement that each the customers are facing. Customers vary, again, being the business sector, governmental sectors, individuals, different part of the society. So those are the ones who highlight that this is the problem statement, and then we need to collaborate, bring things together, and maximize value. From price, cost, again, this is market, supply, demand, and the market will dictate how is the value of each entity. But more important at this stage, we need to sit together and understand how we can build the capabilities and drive value from end user value perspective. How the end user will benefit, and then the willingness to pay. That is again in the capital market, and we all studied this in our MBAs and others.
Shiraz, we're talking here about like a specific project, I think, where have collaborated and you found a solution by looking at the end user value. So Shiraz, from an ABB point of view, can you identify with that, working and collaborating and co-creating? Do you experience that goes easier when you have a specific project that you work with? Or what's your experience from a successful partnership that you can share with us?
So I look at the ecosystem in two ways. The first is obviously it enables us to provide an end-to-end solution. Obviously, as ABB, as a provider of industrial automation, we cannot do it by ourselves. We need partners like Ericsson. We need partners like the CSPs. And so that's one thing, which is a sort of an obvious ecosystem play. I think the second is what Salim was referring to, and even Peter alluded to earlier in the discussion. It is absolutely essential to understand how the customer is perceiving this value. It is our responsibility as providers of these solutions to acknowledge this dynamic. And we are having multiple discussions with various customers on the benefits of 5G or the use cases that we can deliver. However, I think most of these discussions are isolated, in the sense that there are other suppliers having similar discussions and similar use cases with these same customers. And I think we are at a stage where the adoption is not that widespread. That we need to accelerate the adoption to reach that critical mass. Until we get there, we need to not provide these use cases individually, but come together as an ecosystem to create a sort of portfolio of solutions which then communicate the value of 5G as a technology, not as an enabler of one particular solution. That's where I see the ecosystem. And I see we are moving toward that direction. I mean, you take the example of what Anand talked about in Singapore, where we've joined this sort of a group led by Ericsson, which has multiple industrial players, not only ourselves. Similarly, the work that we're doing with 5G Smart or 5Tonic in Spain, I think these conglomerates or these groups of companies are then coming together and providing an end-to-end list of solutions which customers can then say, hey, it's not only this particular use case which is going to benefit me, but if I use 5G, I have these plethora of solutions which I can then choose from. And I think that's where I see the ecosystem playing a huge role. And obviously, the common point in these ecosystems are the CSPs and Ericsson. I think that's something that we need to acknowledge, that will be players like yourselves and partners like yourselves who will be leading this whole thing. So we need to take the responsibility for that. We cannot expect customers to say, okay, we are going to consolidate all our requirements. We need to take that first step.
I think that's wonderful and a great remark. And I think I wanted to start wrapping up the panel with these great words, Shiraz. And I think we can conclude that 5G is being rolled out across the world in an amazing speed. And I think the UAE, you're really the spearhead of this development. And I think we have so much to look forward to in terms of working with you and exploring the opportunities that it brings. 5G is a fantastic platform for innovation. And it's clear we've spoken about all the opportunities here. There are definitely hurdles. There are definitely some blockers. And I think we're working it out between ourselves. We're coming here, and I think just the fact that we're sitting here in a fantastic global environment, we're coming together as a supplier, partners, CSPs. I am absolutely convinced that we will crack this. And I'm really looking forward to be a part of that journey. I can imagine what's possible here. And with that, I would just like to thank all the panelists for joining us today and for adding your fantastic insights and sharing with us your thoughts. So again, let's give a big round of applause for the panels and for coming here.